Hi, Epic Recaps here, and today I am going to explain to you a 2010 action thriller titled, The Next 3 Days. If you want to be spoiled, keep watching. The film begins, and a man named John Brennan is driving in the middle of the night. He looks at his passenger in the back, who is moaning that he can't breathe, and suddenly, he goes very quiet. The scene jumps back in time, to an evening from 3 years before. John and Lara Brennan are out to dinner with John's brother Mick, and his young wife Erit. The conversation gets tense when Lara reveals that she got into a big fight with her female boss. Erit and Lara argue over whether it's a good idea for women to work for other women, and it's clear that Lara dislikes her. Afterward, John teases her, and to prove to him that she isn't jealous of Erit, she jumps on him and they make out. The next morning, the happy family is getting ready for the day, and after Lara injects herself with insulin, she notices a spot on her rain jacket. She washes the stain and realizes that it's blood, just as the police arrive and storm the house, arresting her for the murder of her boss. A frantic John tries to calm their son Luke, as he watches Lara leave in handcuffs. The movie jumps to 3 years later. John is a community college teacher and is raising Luke, who is now 7, on his own. Once a happy little boy, Lara's absence has taken its toll on Luke, and is evidenced during their prison visits, when the young boy doesn't acknowledge his mother. John updates her with details of life outside, and she eagerly asks him if he has any updates about her appeal. He reminds her that the process could take months and that they needed to be patient. That night, John goes over the statement Lara gave to the police. Lara states that after her argument with her boss, she bumped into another woman in the parking lot, and heard a button pop. When she arrived at her car, she moved a fire extinguisher that had fallen, and drove away to meet John, Mick, and Erit for dinner. The next day, John meets with Lara's lawyer who informs him that they lost the appeal, and that all the evidence points to Lara, as no button was recovered from the crime scene. A dejected John visits Lara in prison, and when he breaks the news to her, she loses all hope. Afterward, he stops by his parents' house to pick up Luke, and breaks down in his mother's arms. After he puts Luke to bed, John gets a call from the hospital informing him that Lara attempted suicide. In the weeks following her suicide attempt, John begins to research prison breaks and becomes obsessed with breaking Lara out of prison. He arranges a meet with the author, Damon Pennington, where he tells John that escaping from Pittsburgh is tough, but not impossible, and he would have 15 minutes to reach the bridge and another 20 minutes to get past the tolls. He tells John that he will need cash, fake documents, and a place to escape to as well. Before he leaves, Pennington tells John that he needs to be someone who can run over an old lady or shoot a cop, as that would be the difference between escape or life in jail. Following Pennington's advice, John puts his plan in motion. He spends his time studying escape routes, prison routines, and begins the process of selling their belongings. Unable to get his hands on fake IDs, John buys OxyContin from some street dealers and asks if he sells passports as well. The dealer directs him to a noisy bar to see another guy, but he gets beaten and robbed instead. When he arrives home, he gets a visit from a deaf patron from the bar, who tells him he read John's lips and can help him get the fake IDs. The next day, he buys himself a gun, and waits under the bridge before meeting the deaf man for the forged documents. Appearing to be out of his element, he hands the man the money, and is warned that his obsession may fuck everything all up. When he arrives at work, John makes his way to the utility room and swipes the elevator key. Later at home, he researches how to make a bump key and uses the key he stole to make a prototype. Arriving at the prison for a visit, he manages to get the key through security, and attempts to test it out, only the key gets jammed, and the facility goes under lockdown. After the guards intensely question him, John is released, and on his way out, he sees a new security camera being installed. Rushing out, John immediately vomits outside the prison, and a detective curiously looks on. Detective Quinn turns out to be the same one who oversaw Lara's case, and follows him home. After making some calls, he learns that John has put the house on the market and has a buyer lined up. Meanwhile, John is at the park with Luke, who has been invited to a birthday party of a classmate. John accepts the invitation and awkwardly leaves when the woman suggests they get to know each other. After the key fiasco, John moves on to the next part of the plan and searches for diabetic conditions, and ways to break into a car. After multiple days of surveillance, John follows the medical van that services the prison, and when the driver leaves to pick up samples, he breaks in and photographs Lara's blood work. At home, he alters the report so that it shows Lara's glucose at dangerously high levels. At his next visit with Lara, John learns that she is being transferred to another facility in 3 days. Unable to sell his house within that time, John is forced to make an emergency plan and considers robbing a bank, but is unable to see it through, and almost runs over a mother and child as he backs out. After the botched robbery attempt, John is unsure he is able to see his plan through, but after seeing Lara's deteriorating mental state, he's more determined than ever to break her free. Out of options, John tails the dealer that robbed him and follows him to a meth house. Charging inside in search of cash, a gunfight breaks out. John shoots and kills the cook, while also badly wounding the dealer, who begs John not to leave him there. He locates the cash and throws the injured man into the backseat. Shots are fired at the car, and backing out, John crashes into some garbage cans but manages to escape unharmed. The scene goes back to the beginning of the movie, and John leaves the dealer's dead body on a side bench and drives off. Back at the meth house, detectives arrive to process the crime scene and discover pieces of John's broken tail light. Meanwhile, John arrives at his parents' house to pick up Luke, and when he goes upstairs, his dad finds plane tickets and passports hanging out of his jacket. When they say their goodbyes, John's dad takes him in for a big hug, implying that he knows what John is planning, and that he has his blessing. In the morning, John and Luke pack up their remaining things, and John rips down his wall collage. He throws one garbage bag in the neighbor's bin, and another one down the street. With Luke in the back seat, John breaks into the medical van, and swaps Lara's blood work results with the one he altered, and then cuts the phone lines at the lab. John then drops Luke off early at the birthday party, pretending that he mixed up the time and says he needs to run some errands. Before leaving, he tells her to call his parents, implying that he might be late. At the hospital, a doctor sees Lara's lab report, and tries to call the lab for confirmation, but is unable to get through. They decide to transport Lara to a hospital immediately. At the police station, the detectives inform Lieutenant Nablacy that John's car matches the broken tail light from the meth house, and they head over to discover the house empty. Nablacy is informed that Lara was recently transported to the hospital, and suspecting that John is going to try to break her out, they rush to the hospital to stop him. Meanwhile, John arrives at the hospital and holds the guard and nurse at gunpoint. Lara tries to talk him out of it but eventually agrees, and he starts his timer. They quickly make their way to the elevator and come face to face with the Nablacy when the doors open. The pair manage to escape to P3 level, where John plants their lab coats and heads back up to the lobby. Meanwhile, the lieutenant makes it to P3 via the stairs, and seeing the discarded coats, he makes a beeline to the parking lot. Seeing no trace of them, he realizes he's been duped. Back upstairs, John and Lara blend in with a group of hockey fans heading to the game. They break away and head to the underground subway, where they board a train and barely just get by Nablacy, who chases after them on foot. The train emerges from the underground tunnel and John presses the emergency brakes. They pair jump off and escape through a hole in the fence which he cut the day before. Making their out of the city in an awaiting Chevy, John checks his watch, and makes it past the bridge before the police block it off. Arriving to pick up Luke, they discover that Nicole took the kids to the zoo. With little time remaining, they manage to locate him in the aquarium with his friends, and make a quick exit, rushing to the toll booth. Back at the station, Nablacy has to apologize to the mayor for holding him up at the toll booth, explaining that the guards were instructed to stop only the cars that had a couple and child. At the same time, John approaches the guard, and they are waved through, having picked up an elderly couple shortly before. Meanwhile, detectives find John's garbage, and try to piece together the plan he had mounted on a wall. They discover that the family is headed to Haiti, and race to find which airport they are flying out of. The family drops off the seniors in Buffalo, and makes their way through Canadian airport security with the fake passports. A frustrated Nablacy notices the Canadian coin he's been fidgeting with, and frantically instructs the airport authorities to hold all flights to Haiti. John and his family make their way to board the flight, and manages to get on the plane safely. Meanwhile, security is unable to locate anyone matching their descriptions on the flight bound to Haiti out of Canada. Back at the station, Quinn looks at the board, and wonders tenaciously why John's garbage was so easy to find. Later that day, Quinn and his partner go back to Lara's murder scene, and do a walkthrough based on Lara's version of events, looking for the missing button she claims to have heard pop off. He confirms if it was raining that night, and drops a piece of paper on the floor to follow its path. It ends up in the catch basin by the curb, and hoping to find the button, he discovers nothing but mud and water. He replaces the grate, which knocks some mud loose, and reveals the missing button under the grate. At his home, John's father opens an atlas and flips to the Caribbean coast of South America, and he smiles to himself. John, Lara, and Luke arrive in Venezuela to start their new life together. That night, Lara lies down next to her son, and he turns to her, giving her a kiss on the head. With the family back together, John takes a photograph, and breathes a sigh of relief. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a comment down below. For more movie recaps, don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. See you next time.